So it's an interesting weekend. There might be some upsets brewing. Your Ducks play on Friday.
They do. Friday Night Lights.
I love that Duck fan has convinced themselves to be nervous about Purdue. I've seen Purdue play.
Last time we were there, double overtime game, barely
year was
survived.
that?
2008. It was like it was
Thank you.
yesterday.
Okay.
LeGarrette Blount had a big game.
2008.
2008, man.
Thank you.
Back in my prime.
What year is it?
It's like 2011, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
It's 2012.
It was just a couple years
just
ago.
right there,
wasn't it?
dude, in the rearview mirror.
What I find interesting is a couple narratives this week. Now, we did kick off this week's show. I used the word validation, right?
Yes.
Validation of Lanning's recruiting, his intensity, his attention to detail, and he hadn't quite had the win that made everybody believe. And then he beats Ohio State, and so it was a validation of, like, I knew this guy was on the right track and doing the right things. You needed to see it. You saw it. I have found interesting, one, Ohio State's coping the last, 3 days. The rule stuff, the clock stuff, the penalty stuff. You lost. Shut up. Just shut up. Okay? I also love, conversely, Oregon fan. As if they had gotten no attention ever in the last, 40 years of their program's history this week. We did it! We finally... You've been to 2 natties.
We have.
Can you just for a minute act like you've been to 2 natties? In the last 15, can you at least act that way?
It was a pretty big win. It's a pretty big win.
It was a big win, but
Pretty
I
big
find that kind of reaction funny. And the other one I find funny is Oregon now having to act like they're the hunted, but they were the hunter before.
Yeah, nobody talked about us before this weekend. Nobody gave us any chances.
Where were you ranked going into the Ohio State game?
I think they were unranked. I think they were 27th receiving votes, and then jumped all the way up to number 2. It was the biggest climb in AP poll history, buddy.
Dan Lanning was asked yesterday on primetime about having the big target on the back. You beat Ohio State. You're number 2 in the land. You have the target on your back, Dan Lanning.
I've always felt like we always get, everyone's A game, to be honest. I always feel like people try to bring their best. And there's nobody out there that coaches that's not trying to coach their team to play their best when they play us or any other team. So, I don't think it completely changed the process. It probably just changed the narrative, and it changes the fact that there's more and more noise that doesn't matter, that we have to train ourselves to ignore. But it doesn't change, what our focus is in our process.
Amen, brother. You were already the hunted. This is not
I don't know
some
where
new narrative thing that got flipped of now.
I don't think anybody at Oregon's even trying to argue that.
I don't think anybody at Oregon is.
No, I don't. I didn't really quite understand that question. I think they've been hunted for a long time. I think people like trying to beat Oregon, and people hate Oregon, and there's always been a target on their back for the last, 25 years. Like, you think Boise State didn't have that game circled on their calendar? You weren't hunted in that one? You don't think, some of the guys on UCLA's team who transferred away from the Oregon team to go to UCLA didn't have a target on their back? Like, you have been hunted for a long time. Now, maybe it takes on a different meaning because you're truly one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country now. And there's, we were a month ago you asked me the Monday after the Boise State game, has my opinion changed on Dan Lanning? Like, that's where we were at a month ago. So maybe it's on a different level now, but you have been hunted for a very long time.
Is there going to be more Duck fans in West Lafayette Friday?
I don't think so. I actually think, as much as we make fun of Purdue, I still think they go to games.
Do they?
I think so.
I haven't followed home Purdue games in a long time.
Now, the only one I've seen at home closely of theirs, I watched their Notre Dame game because they played Oregon State the next weekend, so I went back and watched that game.
I guess I saw that one a little bit.
But I don't know how many of those were Notre Dame fans, to be fair. It's all gold, so they all kind of blended together.
They did.
But that reeks to me of a town where there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
And all they do
West Lafayette, Indiana
is Purdue football.
Like, if I'm Dusty
and the number 2 team's coming to town, I think there's going to be a good crowd on Friday night.
Is Dusty on the air today, or is he traveling to
I believe he's traveling today. They're traveling out today.
If I'm Dusty, this was the one, I'm telling my wife in my house, God, I don't want to go on this trip. You like doing the job, but it's like the one where you're like, oh, my God.
Not a lot of redeeming qualities in West Lafayette. They're not even staying in West Lafayette.
That used to be the pro.
They're staying in Indianapolis.
They're staying in They don't have enough hotels in West Lafayette.
Did you see why?
Well, that's part of it. Yeah, the Big Ten championship stuff.
Big Ten championship
Potentially,
stuff.
yeah.
Get your mind right. This is where we're going to be again, gentlemen.
Yeah.
do the Doc Rivers thing, put a stack of cash in the ceiling, come back and reclaim it after we beat whoever it is.
Gonna
in the
go
Big Ten
visit the
title game.
duck out there in the river.
Yeah, go wave to the
Is the
duck.
duck
No, it's
still-
down in Eugene now. They had it out for
it
game
made
day.
it home?
Over by the walk. I
I think
know
the
what
other
that
part of
was.
this, though, is also that they have to have a big infrastructure when it comes to hotels for meetings and walkthroughs, and you have to have big ballrooms, and they require a lot of space when they take up a hotel. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that West Lafayette does not have a hotel that will fit their needs. And so I think that
Really?
was the other part of why they were staying in Indianapolis. And you get a police escort from Indy to West Lafayette. You
It's
could probably
an hour drive.
Yeah, with the police escort, though, you're getting there in 35 minutes. So they're going to fly down the
What, are
highway.
they flying 90 miles an
Yes,
hour?
they will get just like when they go to Corvallis and they take their buses, they get a police escort.
Pretty
You're,
flat out there.
you're not going 59 miles an hour in the right lane. You got 37 motorcycle cops flanking all of your team buses.
It's always a little odd when the home team does the bus arrival, isn't it? It throw you guys off? Does Oregon do that?
I
Oregon
don't-
does it, don't they?
I mean, they do stay in a hotel when they're at home, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they take a bus over to the facility.
I can't tell you how many times I've driven to a game as a media member. I don't go to games really anymore, but when I did, how many times I would be arriving at the same time as the Beaver buses from Albany
yeah.
because, God forbid, you trust your student athletes to stay in a hotel
No,
the
we
night
can't. No.
before.
God, no, we're not doing
Yeah,
that.
we're staying out of town.
That's right.
I don't know where Oregon stays, but I know Oregon State used to stay or probably still stays in Albany.
Yeah, we see the team. Remember, we're on the pregame show. The opposing team buses will drive right in front of us with like a half hour left in the show. That's usually when they start arriving. I love the fans that flip off the bus as they pull into the parking lot. Like, all right. So you get to see that spectacle. But I think Oregon pulls around the other side of the stadium, so we don't see them come in.
It's just always funny to watch them come off of a bus for their home game to do the pom-pom,
Yes.
town hall pump up. Hey, you're here.
The funniest one of all is Clemson, who has to, when they take the field, they have to get dressed in their locker room.
Yeah, they take
put
the
all their
buses
stuff on,
to the other end
take
of the
a bus
stadium.
to the top of the stadium
to go down the hill.
To then go
to
down the
touch
hill.
Howard's Rock and run down.
That has
the
to be
hill and try not
uncomfortable,
to
like
fall.
fully padded, sitting next to somebody else fully padded. Like you're probably jacked and everybody's getting pumped, but
I
that's a
think
little
everybody
uncomfortable.
well, they have like 6 buses, so I think everybody gets like the
Their
double
own
seat.
seat.
Their own row, we just can't fit. 2 offensive linemen fitting into 2 of those tight spots.
Does Dabo still run down the hill every weekend?
He does.
I believe so.
He does.
Are we
man.
going to live long enough to see the moment when he's old guy not acknowledging he's old and he just starts rolling down that thing accidentally?
falls and trips down it? What happened to Dabo? They got an alternate coach in today. He fell down the hill.
That's going to be like our Frank Gore Jr. played on Monday Night Football, and it was like, oh my
did.
God, we're old.
yeah.
That's going to be our, hey, we're old. How old? I used to watch Dabo run down that hill, no problem.
We live long enough to see Joe Paterno poop his pants on the sideline, so maybe we'll see that with Dabo too.